Hello everyone and welcome back to Enter the Ether, the podcast all about the upcoming third-person MOBA Ethereal Clash of Souls, who recently had their stress test. I am your host, the Mangoose. Joining me as always is my friend, co-host, and UG employee, JellyKnees. How you doing, Jelly?
I'm doing well, Mangoose. I thought for a moment we were going like full Shatner, where you're like, I am doing the thing over there.
The stress test was... I can't do a Shatner.
There's something on the wing. No, yeah, I'm doing great, Mangoose. The stress test yesterday gave a lot of good information. Didn't go as well as hoped, to be sure, but thing for us overall.
Yeah, I thought it went pretty well. I mean, you can't help but draw some parallels between the Ethereal stress test and the predecessor stress test.
Mm-hmm.
I think they both functionally went about just as well as each other. Like, I don't know if you guys had as many people initially as they did, but you guys' stress test went a little bit longer than theirs before it kind of shit the bed. The big difference, though, is the amount of communication from Undying Games during the stress test. Like, at no time was I wondering what the hell was going on. And thank God you announced as soon as you were like, okay, we can't, there's something so broken that we can't try and fix it. You were like, okay, stress test over. Thank God. Because otherwise, I was already stressed enough. Like, if I would have had to sit there and wait to find out, it would have been great. So yeah, I think that was the key difference between the two stress tests is, the amount of communication from Undying, and the fact that you guys tried to fix it and then restart it, which was nice.
So to give a little perspective on that specific scenario of the trying to send out a patch and get that fixed, we are pretty sure that the issue that was plaguing us, which caused the initial shutdown to try and patch, was fixed. But then with the patcher, something else disconnected. And so it just wasn't communicating after that. And so that's something we're still looking into the exact scenario of what happened that we'll go into next week. But we're pretty sure the actual issue was fixed. It just caused a second issue then thereafter that we weren't sure we could fix fast enough to be worthwhile keeping everyone on the hook.
Yeah. I mean, that's how things go. You fix one thing and something else breaks somewhere else.
Yeah.
Did it have anything to do with people queuing up as a group?
Initially, yes. There was some issue with when people queued up as a group, one person would get into the game and the other person wouldn't, which would then break the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of that, the server wasn't sure who was in a game and who wasn't in a game. So then when they queued up again and one person got in, the server was just slowly cascading with issues of like, there's too many people in games. It's the same people in every game. I don't know what's going on. And so just the snowball effect from there and that's why we pulled it down, completely cleared the servers to make sure they didn't have any of that issue, and then tried to fix that issue of the groups themselves causing it.
Right.
And then that's mainly what that patch was for.
Okay. I'll tell you. We were talking about it earlier. I was about to lose my mind. Not because of Undying Games, but everybody that would come in and be like, how do I download it? What's up with the download? The download's so slow. Is there another way to It's like, look at the announcements. Just look. Like, they put out a very clear, like, if you can't do the download this way, then you can do it this way. And like, we're working on the downloader to open it up. It's opened up now. You can download. Which one should I use? Whichever fucking one you want. Oh my God.
I love how we've come full circle and me always giving people crap about not reading my announcements. And now Mangoose is on the other side saying to read the announcements.
Not reading a Patreon post is different from not reading an announcement during a stress test when you're participating in the stress test.
100%. The thing that I think surprised us in Undying Games, but just me as a person in general, were the people that were like juggling both downloads for the client, right? That they would like start the regular downloader and then be like, oh, this is going too slow, and start the Google Drive download. But then they'd see their updater start working again. So they'd stop the Google Drive download to go back to the updater. Then it would slow down, so they'd go back to the Google. It was like, just pick one. Just pick one. Like, I don't know why you're trying to juggle both of these. They're the same thing. If Google Drive is working more consistently for you, use that one. Okay? Like, just pick one.
They just want it to work. That's what they want. They want it to work.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys kept your cool. Like, you guys were very calm, cool, and collected. You were going into different streams and talking to, the people in the streams, and you were talking to the people in Discord, and it was all very, you guys did a great job. Much better than I would have done. I would have flipped the fuck out.
To an extent, though, it made me feel better. It made all of us feel better to see you in chat going like, just read the announcements, like, for us, that we were like living vicariously through you with those things. Because it got to the point throughout the day that someone would put like an initial message in there. And then because we were all sitting, all the Undying Games crew were sitting in a voice call together, trying to figure out what was going on, or kind of keep each other updated. So we'd see one message come through, and then someone would be like, I guarantee you their next message is going to be, how do I do the thing? How do I download? Are the servers up? Are this is right? And then sure enough, next message, and we all go, hey, there we go. It's like a cycle at this point. Like,
oh man, that's got to be so stressful to deal with.
It was okay. It was.
I will say,
things.
One of the things when we talk about some of the things I didn't like about the actual gameplay and stuff, is there's a distinct lack of clarity, I think, with Ethereal right now, and that kind of ties into something that was happening during the stress test. When the servers were down and you tried to log in, it would tell you that your password was incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
So people would assume that they needed to do something with their account, which is completely understandable. But if it said that just meant that the servers were down. I figured that out on my own, just kind of puttering around with the system. Like, I would know when the servers were down, and then I would try and log in and see that it would say that my password is incorrect. And I would know that my password wasn't incorrect, and I kind of figured that out on my own. But I think that was part of the problem too, was people thinking that their account was somehow compromised when it was actually just the servers being down. But there was a clarity issue there. Like, it should tell you, like, the servers are down or something. It shouldn't say password is incorrect.
100% agree with you. It was one of those things of, we've only ever tried it. We've only ever tried to play the game internally with the servers up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those, we didn't know until the servers were down that, like, oh, that makes sense. Like, it's just one of those things you don't think about until it happens.
Yeah.
That we're like, oh, servers are down, and it doesn't say servers are down. That is something we should obviously add in there, right? And there was a bunch of little things like that we're like, oh yeah, now that we're here and be able to and see this in a different way, we need to add that thing. We need to change this thing. We need to, the big one being, and I know you talked about it a lot, and I know other people talked about it a lot, was the timer when a queue pops in order to accept. For us, again, internally, we have 12 testers sitting there, and if we're using the matchmaking, everybody's sitting there waiting for the queue to pop. We know when all 12 are there, they just press accept, no big deal.
Right.
But in a live setting, that's not the case always. Sometimes you're looking at your phone, sometimes you're looking at a different screen, whatever it was. And so having a longer timer and then having a sound play when it actually shows up.
Yeah.
That way, that even if you are looking somewhere else, you have the distinct sound cue of like, oh, I need to look back at the screen to hit accept. So again, it was a bunch of little things like that figured out just because of a more wide environment and more realistic environment for the game as well.
Yeah, it was fast. That would be like, did I just get a text message? Oh no, it's just another Twitch notification. Fuck, I missed the queue. Like, it was that fast. It was that timer is like you guys' version of Predecessor's Footsteps. Like, it's not something that really affected the game, but it was just funny and a little bit annoying, so that's what people kind of grabbed a hold of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was insane. Let's talk about some of the good things, though. Like, let's talk about some of the good things that went on. You had the Reaper passive and the Berserker passive were active. Mm-hmm. Berserker, like, the rocks were marked with an X if you could break them. Is that going to be something changed in the future? Like, or is
absolutely, there's going to be a more.
That's what I figured. I figured that was like
Berserker distinct object to them. for now, the X was just the quick, we can toss this out there so people know exactly what rocks they can break without having to add so much functionality on top of that to make it more complicated for us to implement it, at least at first. It was kind of a, let's make sure it works, and then we can get the clarity performance aspect of it more fleshed out for Berserkers in the future.
Right on. I was able to pull off a Kool-Aid gank, and that's all I wanted from this entire stress test.
One of the games, I was watching Bearded stream, and the game you guys were in, there was a moment, I think it was you, because you were playing Aron that game. He was fighting someone in the jungle, and you bopped a rock right behind the fight, and it exploded outwards, and you just, oh, dude, it was like... To me, that was the moment I was like, that's the potential of the game right there.
Yeah.
Like that, seeing a Berserker just smash a rock and enter a fight through a wall was such a cool element that we were all sitting in chat going like, that was insane. Like, what's going on? Like, it was such a cool feeling to see that happen.
I remember that moment. That wasn't the Kool-Aid gank I was talking about, but I do remember that moment because he was fighting somebody, and I was like, don't worry, bro, I'm on my way. And I saw that X, and I was like, yes. Boom, here we go. It's a little weird from Aron's perspective because it just looks like a bunch of falling rocks whenever you bust through. But when you see it happen, like when it's another Aron busting through, it's a lot more dramatic.
The slight explosion of rocks and just like you feel the impact a little bit of seeing that rock explode.
Yeah.
And then the rocks themselves, just before it reappears, the rock turns like a blue color. You get like an outline of the rock in this like hazy blue color. And then the rocks themselves actually appear and reform back together into the rock.
Oh, really? I did not see that happen.
It's not just the effect of rocks exploding out. It's actually the pieces of the rock you're destroying exploding outwards.
Oh, okay.
And then when the rock is reforming, those pieces reappear and then slowly come back together. That's something that one of our programmers has been working on for quite some time. So to get it looking nice and feeling good and not, you can do 5 million pieces and then it just murders performance, or you could do one piece and just giant rock flipping out into the air, right? Like it's finding the balance between those two things. So yeah, it's super cool.
I thought it looked really good. I didn't get to play Malaya. I kind of wanted to try out the Reaper passive, but I wasn't able to play Malaya. Did her Reaper, I know you, did you get to play it all?
I did not. I was too busy doing other things in the background.
Yeah, I figured. But is the Reaper passive working? Like, I didn't get a chance to see.
Yeah, it's up there. She climbs walls, lickety split. Get up on top. We actually leveled a lot of the rocks, so it's easier to walk across the top of them. But it was absolutely working yesterday, and I know a couple people were using it throughout their games for sure.
Okay. Hey, your camera froze up, by the way.
Ah. Hello.
Hey, there you are. Well, okay, that's good. That's good that was working. I know everybody that played, that got into games, had a lot of fun with it. I mean, not everybody knew what they were doing, of course, which is completely understandable. It's their first time getting into this wholly different MOBA. Like, the one game I had Talos, and I went up top lane, and here comes Malaya behind me. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? It's like, oh, well, I mean, it's probably just somebody that hasn't played before. They have no idea where to go. But that brings that kind of brings up the clarity point. There was no in-game chat.
There was not.
Or chat draft or draft chat. I would have liked to have some draft chat because I wanted to play Aron support, but then somebody picked Marina, and I wanted to like tell them before they picked, like, hey,
I'm gonna do the thing. Come on, yeah. It's something we're definitely gonna have in there before pre-alpha because we know that that's a big thing, especially in draft, is being able to coordinate with your team of who's going where, what's going on, all those things.
Yeah.
So it's all. I'm sure a bunch of that kind of stuff is going to change and improve in its clarity aspects. For instance, we've already been talking about potentially removing the role selection from the queue,
yes,
but moving it into the draft. So similar to how Fault does it, in that when you get into draft, you kind of show a preference of I want to go to this lane.
Okay.
Right. We've talked about maybe adding something like that instead of, because the roles in the queue don't mean anything right now. There aren't enough players to mean anything where you're actually going to be queuing for your position, because the matchmaker right now tries to take those into account. But when you only have a couple hundred players playing at any one time,
right,
the variety is just not there. Something we definitely want to have in the future, because that makes it makes it easier for you to queue what you want exactly in mind, but just not something that necessarily needs to happen right now.
Yeah. That was the other thing is like you couldn't queue until you picked 2 roles. But I was like looking and I'm like, where the fuck do I pick the roles? It was like 2 tiny little diamonds on top of that card. Like there was nothing that said like, this is where you pick your role, you know?
Yeah.
So that's something that needs to be clarified quite a bit. And then the actual role icons themselves, like you can't tell what that means.
Nope, not at all. And that's something we already have new role icons. They just hadn't been implemented into that form yet because we know we want to alter that and kind of change it up a little bit.
Okay,
here.
right on. Well, that's good. That's good. That was probably the last thing I had as far as clarity of gameplay was that the role picker. But yeah, other than that, yeah, like I said, everybody had fun. Like the games were freaking fun. Even the one I got demolished because we were 4v6, but still had fun.
Yeah,
and I know Hammer had fun demolishing me with Noxus.
That's what we heard too. Is that pretty much everybody that got into game. Were there issues? Of course. Like that's no question about that. But they all enjoyed the games they were in.
Yeah.
Right? Win, loss, otherwise, right? Like they enjoyed the time that they had. People were talking about Leah flight. People were talking about Malaya climbing. Being able to destroy rocks. Being able to do all these things are next level in terms of the fun aspect for these people. Like the first game that you and Bearded got into, you guys had an insanely close match for like an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like you guys, it was just like back and forth the whole time, which was such a cool thing to see. It's a rarity that games go that long, but when they do, you can see why. Because you guys were a kill apart almost the entire game, going back and forth. You each had your fed person that when they died, you guys could push forward and do something. And then they came back up and pushed against you. And it was such a cool thing to see for us.
That a big part of the comeback for that was my mom came like to my house in the middle of that game. So for like a solid 10 minutes, I was just at base.
Perfect.
And plus I don't jungle a lot and I picked a run and you pick your familiar spell and your other spell at the beginning. And I picked Mark because I knew that I was going to have to jungle. I wanted to support, but I knew I was going to have to jungle. I know better, but this is definitely something that I think would confuse people. Like I picked that mark. I assumed I had the mark. I forgot that I need to actually buy it.
Yeah.
So I didn't have my mark when I was trying to jungle and I was getting demolished by jungle minions. So like I had a very slow start on Iran, but and the enemy team's Iran was fed as hell and was just demolishing people. But once I got to damn near full build, I was able to get in there and do my own Iran things.
Yeah. And it was super cool to see all across the board people getting into games and having a good time. So, which is a secondary benefit of that stress test, right? Yes, we learned a lot on the server backend side of everything, but also getting players in to actually have fun and play the game is a great secondary benefit of that.
Right. Man, I didn't expect to enjoy Iran so much. Like I figured out a new strategy like halfway through the game. Like I was trying to body block Talos from going back through his portal so that Bearded could get the kill on him. And I'm body blocking, I was like, oh fuck, he's starting to get around me. It's like, oh, I've got my fear. So I just feared him. Well, and he walked away from his portal.
There you go. That's all
Bearded
it takes.
Was able to pick up the kill. I was like, yeah, that's nice. Body block for a while as soon as they try and start to get around you. Because, of course, you're not going to be able to body block somebody forever. But you just fear them whenever they start to get around you.
Whatever works, dude.
Oh, man. What was those Twitch numbers like? How many people were watching? Do you even know?
We saw a couple hundred Twitch viewers
Yeah.
across all the different streams. We had a couple hundred people that we sent out keys to. So, I mean, so all in all, I think it was a really good thing for us. We probably had close to 1,000, if not more, across either viewers or players going in. So it was a really cool thing to see, trying to get more players in, because the thing we actually noticed is that our gameplay servers themselves were solid, right? That they when people were in games, right, with the amount of games we had running and the server we had, the server wasn't losing its mind. The server was doing pretty good on that front. So it showed us that it was just that middle ground where things started to cascade and fall apart. That's where the improvement is really needed. That our server end, the complete end of the server, where it's actually just running the game, is really solid.
So again, it just sounds like a lot like what happened with Predecessor. Like it seems like their servers were solid, but the back end blew out.
Yep, absolutely. And that's something our back end guy was already basically he watched it happen in real time, it sounds like. And he saw it all breaking down. And he's like, I know what's wrong, but like it's one of those things of like I wish he could just go in and like press 2 buttons and it would fix, but it's just not that simple. So
I feel bad for him, like watching something like that fall apart.
But I mean, with that in mind, we're having meetings this week, of course, to talk about the stress test and everything that we need to do to implement better for the pre-alpha. But we still believe that we're on track for that pre-alpha in December. So it's something that this was a much needed step for us, but also still keeps us in line with where we want to be in terms of everything else.
Man, there's a lot going on in December.
Everything, dude. We've got patch 14, we've got Overprime, we've got pre-alpha for Ethereal.
Did Overprime announce that they were going to be out in December?
Their roadmap was saying that they were going to be out in December, they released months ago.
Because I know for sure, but I can't say.
Oh, whoa, Mangoose. Okay.
Yeah, I just can't. I did Windows like a fault partner panel, but then after that he did a Let's Be Honest for Ethereal. And something I don't know why it has never occurred to me before, but one of the reasons I like Ethereal so much is kind of the same reason I like Paragon so much. The first time you loaded into Paragon, it was so new and different, it just blew you away. You don't get that with the Paragon successors because it's just more Paragon. It's more of a game you've already played. With Ethereal, you get that feeling like when you first loaded up Paragon, like everything's new and different and it's just a fun experience. And I hope you guys can keep that and keep it fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the plan, right? And is to make it easier for that fresh feeling to still be approachable to new players as well.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing, is trying to find all of those things in there. The other thing we did for the stress test actually was we had the Berserker and Reaper class abilities in there, but with the Spires, we're all in there with functionality as well.
Oh yeah. I didn't expect that, and I took a bunch of damage. I forgot they were supposed to do something except be there.
They weren't just aesthetic pieces in the map. So you walk up and you're like, oh, that's different. Okay.
Yeah.
The Spires we decided are going to be AoE blasts. If you think similar to the core in Paragon, how is an AoE blast that deals a set amount of damage to every target that's in its zone. So if there are a bunch of minions and a bunch of myths, it's relatively minimal, but the fewer targets there are, the more damage you're going to take throughout. So
okay.
It's not something you can just rush in and push by yourself consistently.
I'm pretty sure I tried to do that.
We also had wards in the game. That was another thing that was in there.
I didn't buy any wards, and I really should have. I did see one get used.
Yeah, they put up a green like effect that goes out that tells you exactly how big that ward radius is.
I really like that too, because it's like when you're playing Fault, you have no idea what your ward is actually going to see when you put it down. You don't know what's going to be clipped out and what isn't. With that, you could actually see what your ward is going to be able to view.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I've started actually designing VFX for Ethereal, putting in some of those things or altering the ones we have. And so that's one of the things I created was that word VFX, which made me happy to see people like it and using it and it worked correctly and all those things.
So that's why I didn't use the wards.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Because I have to ignore everything you do.
Exactly, of course. But I mean, so we also...
No, look good.
Thank you. We put the patch notes out on the website for everything that had changed between Extra Life and the stress test. So with the 2-week difference, basically, we had a list of things that we implemented, changed, balanced, whatever it was. And so I think that just gives perspective to players as well of like what our team is capable of doing in 2 weeks, in that limited time of pushing these things out, getting updates in, balancing things accordingly, all of those things, and having that aspect to be functional.
Right. Do you guys think you'll do another stress test before the actual pre-alpha?
I can't say with 100% certainty. It's something we're going to talk about this week of what we want to do, where we want to be, and all those things, and then go from there. If we do, we'll probably talk about it during the live community corner next week, where we kind of break down the stress test as a whole, and then where we're going from there, what we're expecting, and kind of release or kind of talk about like a roadmap for what we're looking for in the next few months, etc.
Okay, right on. Yeah. Overall, I think it was pretty successful. It didn't last nearly as long as I wanted it to, and I don't think as many people got in as wanted to. But I mean, you guys kind of hedged your bets. You said right from the beginning that this is a stress test, and that you expect that these servers will probably go down, and that you were just going to build up until it happened, and that is exactly what happened. I don't think it happened as I think it happened a little sooner than you guys wanted, but
of course, yeah. I mean, ideally, we definitely wanted to go as long as possible, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to be able to come out of this weekend saying like, we just had a really successful stress test. But it didn't happen. But we that's partly why we set it up the way we did, is because we couldn't be certain on that. This is our first essentially public test.
Right.
There is no certainties about anything. And so going in, I am a firm believer in the under promise, over deliver. Right. And so if I am going into something, I will under promise the living hell out of you. And then at minimum, it's going to meet that under promise. If at best, we're going to vastly exceed it. Right. Yeah. And so I would much rather do that than over promise, under deliver, because that just is horrible feeling.
I have a feeling that's going to happen to a lot of games too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the big thing for us, I talked about it a little bit, is we didn't reach our issue was not the amount of players, right? The reason we were sending out keys in such rapid succession the way we were is because the actual stress of the servers based on player numbers was fine. Mm-hmm. Like we were seeing exceptional results from that end. So it was like, okay, we can send out more keys. We can send out more keys. We can send out more keys. And like I said, the thing that really broke down was just that matchmaking mismatch with the server communication. If that was okay, we easily could have pushed those numbers far higher than they were at by the time we closed out.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Which was super encouraging for us to know that like we can handle that larger width, that amount of players we had wasn't the direct cause of the failure.
Right. Good to go. Well, it sounds like you guys learned a lot, and it'll be applied in the future, and hopefully a lot more people can get into that pre-alpha than got into the stress test.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, like Skifter and I alone went through and kind of made a list after the fact of various weight things, right? So big, small, teeny tiny bugs, whatever it is.
Right.
We already in less than a day have a list of 80 things on here that we want to go through, look at, tweak, adjust, make better, add in the servers are down instead of wrong password, right? Like it's stuff like that. It's all various levels of severity, but we already have this list of things that we're working through this week to bust out and get going so we can make everything as good as possible going into the future.
All right. Awesome. You guys work your asses off.
That's last night. Kai several times was like, guys, go rest. And we're like talking about something. He's like, go rest.
That's funny.
That's just
good old Kai for that. Good old Kai.
We see the potential of the game, right? And so when we get results like we did yesterday, where it didn't go as well as we hoped, we get just as disappointed as the players probably do.
Right.
Because we look at that and go like, we could have done so much better than that. Like, and so then it's the motivation of like, okay, we're going to do much better than that. Like tomorrow, like we're going to go out and do everything we can as quickly as we can to show that we can do better than that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one-upping ourselves as well as showing the community the capability that's there as well.
No, you can only go up from here. I'm
Mhm.
really excited to get involved in this pre-alpha. December's
Yeah,
going to
it
be a
should be really
crazy
exciting.
month. All right. I think that's about all I wanted to cover, unless you had anything else.
I think that's it for me. Like I said, the live community corner next weekend on Saturday. So we'll kind of break down the stress test, everything that happens, and lay out a little more of a roadmap for what we're expecting.
And remember, guys, if you want to get into the pre-alpha, a cumulative $20 on Patreon will get you into the pre-alpha, right?
Yep.
So if you
So
do
whether
that,
that's done in one tier or the $5 tier over 4 months, whatever it takes to get to that $20 cumulative, you get access to the pre-alpha.
right on. Your camera froze again.
I don't know what's happening with my camera today.
So if you do get in December, look for an Mangoose bursting through a wall near you. That's kind of funny too. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, I used to be like all about Malaya at first, and now that's like your baby.
I know. I thought I was going to be a Leah main. I don't play Leah at all.
I never thought I would play Talos. He's my favorite.
Yeah, and I'm waiting for one thing to get implemented on Talos before I like dive really hard into him again.
Uh-oh.
Because it used to exist, and then we had to remove it because it was causing issues, but we have plans to bring it back that I'm
Okay.
really, really excited for. So
Are we going to get Flag Girl Talos back? Is that?
he just spins his axe above his head and flies around.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, that's going to close it out for this week. Plugs, Jelly, streaming, all that.
Yeah, the twitch.tv/JellyKnees doing Marvelous Monday yesterday. But every Monday evening I do Marvelous Monday. So we're getting back into that, getting in the swing of things again.
Right on. Cool beans. I got nothing to plug myself, so we're just going to close it out here. And yeah, like I said, if you want to guarantee a spot in that pre-alpha, head over to Patreon. And it's cumulative. I cannot say that word. Cumulative. There we go. So, so if you have been participating in the Patreon for a while, then you've probably already reached that goal. I know I have. But yeah. If you want to do that, I hope you do, and then you can join us as we enter the ether. Look at them jelly guns. Look at him going. He's still going.